Hello, it's Zoe, and welcome back to the Mischief Movement podcast, your weekly inspo for people looking for more hell yeah in their life. Consider this your one-way ticket out of midlife mediocrity towards fun and positive impact via playful disruption. Wouldn't you love to wake up and feel like a total badass? How about breaking some rules, throwing two fingers up to society and doing more of the things you love? I'm talking full-on freedom, adventure, and those meaningful connections I know you've been craving. Stop waiting for your amazing life to happen and go get it! I'll be picking the brains of some true game changers and mischief makers so I can share what I find and hopefully inspire you to shake things up, do more of what makes you feel alive, and boldly rebel against the ordinary. I've no idea what I'm doing, to be honest, but I've got a mission and I'm here to start a movement. It's going to be quite the adventure. Care to join me? Okay, here goes. We often talk about fear and confidence on this show, but what else do you need in order to create a life that's more fun, playful, and aligned with who you want to be? The ability to roll with the punches and get back up again from a fall, otherwise known as resilience. In this episode, Alex talks us through the fundamental part that resilience has to play in our day-to-day lives, how to cultivate more of it, the power of coaching to help you see what you yourself can't recognize on your own, and how age is just a number. It's never too late to change things. We're both agreed that it's those mini moments of discomfort, change, or mischief that add up to significant transformations. And she even gives us a couple of exercises to try when it comes to silencing our inner critics and moving ourselves forward. Grab a pen and paper. You're going to want to take some notes. So this week, I'm joined by Alex from Shore Coaching, and I'm really excited to talk a little bit about coaching and about her journey. So, hello, Alex.
Thank you so much for having me on.
You're so welcome. You describe yourself as a resilience coach. Do you want to tell me a little bit about resilience? Because surely it's got to be a fundamental part of, making more mischief in life.
Absolutely, 100% yes. I think resilience is a funny thing because we have this kind of societal idea of resilience that it's about being tough and strong and, flawless, not having any emotions, standing on top of a mountain, watching a sunrise, with big muscles. And that the reality of resilience is very much more about flexibility, self-compassion, and making space for playfulness, mischief, all parts of you, every single angle of you as a human being. And it's doing all of that that then gives you this ability to adapt and bounce back, to heal and know yourself, to be able to be sort of psychologically steady in tough times, and not just to survive the hard moments, which is often, I think, what resilience gets sort of pigeonholed as, but to have all of the momentum and energy that you need to thrive as well. And it's that part where playfulness, fun, mischief, all of that really comes into it, because those are energies, and they're all about embracing the parts of you, all parts of you, and not just the parts which we, serious society finds acceptable. So yeah, I think they are very intricately connected.
Yeah, I feel like coaching has the potential to completely transform someone's life, but there are a lot of people out there who either don't believe in the power of coaching or don't want to make that sort of investment in themselves for whatever reason. How would you describe the power of coaching, and what would you say to someone who is kind of skeptical or perhaps sitting on the fence about working with a coach?
Come and do an intro call with me. I've had some wonderfully skeptical people show up for my coaching and leave absolutely mind blown by the impact it's had on them. And I didn't really understand the value of coaching before I got into it. We all know that therapy helps, and talking therapies are extremely powerful, and coaching does come within that. But the thing about coaching is that with therapy, you're kind of always looking back, and it's necessary to do that. You look back at what's happened to you, you work out why you have the things you have. It's very important. The difference with coaching is that a coach kind of helps you look at what's standing in your way right now, where you want to go, and then takes how you can take the practical action to get to where you want to go. So a lot of stuff from the past might come up, but the coach would be like, okay, how is this resonating right now? What do you need to do to move past it? How can I hold you accountable? And one of the real values of coaching is that you are basically sharing your hopes, wants, dreams, difficulties, etc., with an intuitive, experienced person who is trained to be able to reflect that back at you. And the power of that is insane, because half the time we are stuck in our own internal narratives. They're usually negative because we've got a natural negativity bias. So we're ruminating round and round and round and round. And then a coach will ask one single powerful question. And you're like, whoa, everything opens up. And suddenly there's this whole other area of life you thought either was out of reach for you. You didn't realize it was there. You'd never given yourself permission to imagine that for yourself. And that's the power of coaching. It's all about questioning, powerful questioning. It's about having someone support you in emotional moments and hold space for you when you feel vulnerable, learning to navigate discomfort and vulnerability, and also that reflective, being able to reflect back at you the things which perhaps you can't see and the people around you can't see either, and to do it in a way that is the right level of challenge for you so that you don't feel hurt, but you might have a sensation of discomfort that, yes, I can change that. And the way the process works is small steps, essentially. So it's like climbing a mountain. You're kind of looking at the ground and you're sort of just plodding along, and then suddenly you look back and you're like, oh my God, I've come so far. And that's how coaching works as well. It's practical, consistent support, and those powerful questions that a coach will just drop in like a ripple in a pool, and they just change everything.
I love that that visual that you just mentioned about a ripple. But it's not telling a person what to do, is it? It's asking these questions, but it's not actually giving them the answers. It's allowing that space, if I'm not wrong, to actually kind of discover them almost for themselves.
Yeah, you're 100% right, because it's what makes coaching sustainable change, i.e. it's permanent change that you can then run with after you finish the sessions. What makes it sustainable is the fact that you discover, as you said, your own solutions. So you're not having someone be like, you should do this, you should do that. Because what that creates is a relationship where whenever you need something, you will go back to the coach. And I hate to say it, but for some coaches, that is the relationship they establish because it's financially very beneficial. But most coaching should, if you're working with an accredited coach who's been trained under an accredited program like I have, you're working with someone who wants to give this over to you at the end of the process and see you run with it. And that's the benefit of learning to do it yourself, of coming up with solutions yourself, not being told what to do. Sometimes I share stuff with my clients. I'm a great one I love podcasts. I love resources. I love reading data, knowledge, facts about the way your mind works. I love all of that stuff. So I'm constantly sharing that because I think that kind of information gives you resources to effect change in your life. And every now and again, I might question quite directionally, but the bulk of it is just all about holding space, giving someone the chance to find their own way. Because we're all capable of it. We're all capable of resilience. We're all capable of confidence. And we're all capable of the things that we want in life. There's nothing that you can't do, really, if you set your mind to it. And coaching should be enabling that, not creating a scenario where you feel like you need a coach to be successful.
Yeah, 100%. Talking about resources, I did want to ask you actually if there is a book, a brand, a blog, some sort of product, anything that you find yourself recommending again and again.
So at the moment, I go through phases with this stuff, but at the moment it is Self-Compassion by Kristin Neff. And her work on self-compassion is brilliant because, like resilience, self-compassion is one of these concepts that people are like, oh, it's just being nice to yourself. It's a bit weak. It's a bit, wishy-washy. And she sort of phrases it as if, life is a battle. Life is hard. Do you want to go into battle with someone by your side who's saying, you're rubbish, I hate you, you're not going to be able to do this, which is like an inner critic, or a compassionate voice that's going to be like, hey, let's do this. I believe in you. You've got this. So she phrases it as this very practical choice between, a very harsh inner narrative that's going to activate your sympathetic nervous system, i.e. anxiety, and all the fight or flight mode that you don't need for problem solving, or a compassionate side that's going to leave you with space to do the things that you want to do and to feel okay about yourself. So I think self-compassion is so important. It's so important for resilience. It's so important for life in general. We are missing it hugely from our society today. So I've ranted there a little bit. But I would recommend her because Kristen Neff, she's also done a really good podcast with Dr. Raj, which is YouTube, which is an hour long, and you can get it all from there as well. But yeah, anything she's doing at the moment, yeah. Obviously Brené Brown as well, because she's all about vulnerability.
Yeah,
which is another pet topic of mine. But yeah, either of those I think are really worth exploring.
Awesome. Thanks for that one. What was your journey into coaching like?
I'd say it was quite unexpected. I didn't really expect it. I used to be a lawyer. I spent most of my life working in the city in a very different environment, then moved into kind of legal publishing and then went freelance as a writer. And I became a coach in my late 30s, which, all the voices in my head told me was a terrible move because it's too late. It's, that you're too old and it's too late. And my God, I couldn't have been more wrong. But yeah, so I basically did a personality test. I think it was a personality test. So I did a well-being course because I knew I needed a bit of more sort of scientific structure to my understanding of well-being. And I did this course, and at the end of it, it was kind of looking into your personality traits, your values. This is the test, not the course, sorry. And it came up with all these like leader, a coach. What was the other thing? All of it was basically pointing in the direction of someone who does this job. And I just had this, I haven't had many sort of light bulb moments in my life, but that was a moment of like, why am I not a coach? I didn't really know that much about it at the time, but I had this strong intuitive pull that this was what I was meant to do. And then I did the training, which was a very emotional process, very hard, very, very vulnerable, which it should be, because this is not an easy job. And you have to learn how to deal with emotions, your own and other people's. And yeah, so I went from there and I did this sort of basic training. And then I just sort of added bits onto that, like neurolinguistic programming and like somatic coaching and all the things that I find useful.
Why do you think that was so hard to go through? Was it because you felt like you needed healing first?
Yes. I mean, I think we always all need healing. I don't think you ever stop on that journey. But I would say that one of the reasons I picked resilience as my sort of coaching practice is because I didn't used to have any at all. I used to disassociate from my feelings completely. I didn't know how to cope with joy as much as I didn't know how to cope with sadness and grief. So I didn't feel my feelings. And I know a lot of people do this. So I would numb with spending money, drinking alcohol, having sex, doing all the things which basically mean you don't have to think about how you actually feel. I wasn't comfortable with vulnerability. I was a massive high achiever. So all my validation came from other people noticing my achievements. And so I was starting to process all that stuff with a therapist, but doing that coaching course, what it was actually is I had to show up as myself, because I'd got to a point in my life where I was fed up of pretending, and I didn't know whether being myself was going to be a good thing or not, because I'd always lived under the sort of idea that it wasn't a good idea to show people who you really were for various reasons from my past. And I know a lot of people do hide, shame was a big thing for me, a big thing in my family. And I think when you've got any shame in your mindset, it does tell you, the message is don't be yourself, don't show the world who you are, don't be vulnerable. So that's what I had to go through in that course. And it sometimes felt like a physical breaking through. It felt like a battle. I was really fighting this very entrenched part of myself that was like, do not be vulnerable, do not share, and the funny thing is, like, since I've started coaching, I started out when I was coaching, with a list of questions. And that doesn't make you a good coach, because you've got to be thinking and you've got to be curious. And, it's not about you and whether you're performing well, it's about the person who's speaking. And one of the interesting things has been accepting the vulnerability in just being naturally, I'm going to say it, even though I sound like a big head, naturally good at something and really naturally enjoying it and allowing yourself to really embrace that. So that was another area of vulnerability in the course, is like I seemed to be naturally good at it, but I hadn't had to sort of prove my worth first, which was very much what I was used to being a lawyer, etc. Just hugely vulnerable to do the course, which was, vulnerability at the time feels horrific, always. And then afterwards, there's this rush of tenderness and this huge sense of growth. And that's what I got after that course. And everything changed, basically.
It's so beautiful to picture you going through that.
Oh, it wasn't pretty. There was lots of tears.
I imagine you coming out the other side as a different person who's learned more about themselves and is then going to use that to impact on other people. And I've no doubt that it was actually really difficult to go through. But what things truly matter to you and are essential to the way you design your life? Because at least on this podcast, I do want to help people achieve their best life. And I think a lot of that does involve being the creator of your life, in the sense of how you want to work, what you're going to dedicate your time to, and I talk a lot about this idea that we're multifaceted. We're not just one thing. There are parts of us that love running, parts of us that love music, and I think we're very conditioned to showing up as one or two things, but really there's so much more to us. So I just wondered what things are important to you.
You've kind of mentioned that. I think authenticity, and I know that's a buzzword, but being yourself. And one of the things that's been most important to me is to learn who I am and to learn to love who I am, and to learn, and the people that have come into my life in the past couple of years who've really reflected back at me that even the parts of me that I thought would be forever unlovable are just not. And that's been a learning curve as well. And I think we all have a responsibility in life to tap into who we are so that we do understand ourselves, and to work on the things which hold us back, because the happier we are, you can't show up in your life for the people around you or your work colleagues or your kids or your friends if you're unhappy, if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not resilient, if you don't know who you are, if you're not joyful, if so it really matters to me that people get to know themselves and each other, but themselves, and that learning is really important to me as well, like evolving, kind of moving through things. So one of my favorite quotes is, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And that kind of sums up what is really important to me, is not to be buffeted along and think you have no power and no control, and that you're at the mercy of other people or society or your age or your job. It's to kind of tap into this innate inner power where actually, if you understand yourself, you've got the unconscious is unconscious, so we kind of don't know what's in there, but there are things you can do to shed some light on it and to empower yourself. So that's really important to me. In a completely different way, I've realized recently that movement is incredibly important to me. And I lived my life in a very sedentary way. When I was a lawyer, I just worked. I tried to go to the gym, but I hated it. And then the only exercise I really got was dancing, because I loved clubbing. I loved dancing. I'd stay out all night, all weekend doing that, because I absolutely loved the music and the movement. But now I'm really realizing how joyful movement makes me, and how vital it is to move quite a lot. Like I will, I told you before we started that I'd been for a run today, and I'm not really a natural runner. But I'm sort of building things up very slowly. And I was smiling at one point on my run, like some weird, I was just like, I'm loving this. and I will do yoga every day. You know, I'm in my 40s and I'm learning dance routines just for the hell of it. And I shouldn't have to say that, because it should be okay at any age to have this sort of playfulness. But yeah, movement. And I think another reason that's important is we underestimate the fact that the way our body feels impacts how we feel emotionally. There is no disconnect between body and mind. The two are very much linked. If you don't get enough exercise, you will feel unhappy. It's as simple as that. And one of the things I've learned about motivation, especially with exercise, and confidence too, is that don't wait for those feelings to happen to you. You know, like with motivation, you don't usually feel motivated before you do something. You've got to do it unmotivated, and then the motivation comes once you start. And the other thing I would say that really is central is connection to other people. I think it's really important, whether you're married or not, whether you have children or not, to work out who fills you with joy, to work out, to surround yourself with people who are really on your team and really going to help you through, whatever you need, and where it's mutually beneficial too. Because, I think friendships are underestimated, and we put so much value on romantic relationships, and I think friendships are actually possibly more important than any other things that we establish in life.
Yeah, I definitely share your value of connection, because I also really hold my friends in very high esteem. And in fact, I did a solo episode about reading a book called The Power of Fun. Do you know it? I don't know if you've read it.
Yeah, I've read it.
Yeah. I was going through a period in my life where I just felt like I wasn't really having a lot of fun at all. It was just the daily grind, very much rinse and repeat with 2 young children, and reading that book really helped me, and made me realize that, it's more than just having a friendship. It's actually your network of people that allow you to experience more joy and more fun. And it's so fundamental to living a life that really fills you up, I think.
Definitely. You need all these people, all these connections, like I think you said at the start, we're multifaceted human beings. We're not meant to just fill one role.
It's series 2, and I'm excited to be back partnering with Polite Club again, a brand whose mission is to change the attitude towards vulnerability and to encourage more conversation around it in order to increase real human connection. The vehicle for these conversations is clothing, or connection clothing as it's become known. And connection is one of our core values. So to bring more people together and help you rebel against staying the same, Polite Club are offering a cheeky 10% discount when you use the code MISCHIEF at the checkout. Sustainable, organic, and rebellious, of course, Polite Club also uses 50% of their profits to fund proactive suicide prevention in the form of coaching, support, and awareness raising, which enables people to understand their emotions and express how they feel constructively. Become a vulnerable with us. For more info on the brand or to buy online, go to politeclub.co.uk or follow on Instagram at politeclubhq. Now, on with the show.
So have you found it hard to create a life and a career around the things that you love? What kind of obstacles have you had to overcome to get here?
I guess money is the most obvious one. I think I'm pretty privileged in terms of who I am, and I recognize that, and I'm really grateful for it. But I think coaching courses cost money. It takes a long time to build up to earning with coaching. You need the experience, you need the confidence. I wasn't someone who could start out charging people a full rate. I wanted to make sure I was a good coach first. And I think that can be a real challenge. But also, I think I just feel like it's up in your mindset, which is the biggest obstacle of all, because I repeatedly find myself coming up against they're almost like unseen limits in my head, which I don't know when I created them or who put them there, but they kind of allow me to explore certain things to a certain extent, and then I have to stop. And becoming conscious of those is a lot of the work I do with clients. It's the reflecting back. It's quite hard to do it for yourself, which is why coaches need coaching too. But I think those have been some of the biggest obstacles, which I mentioned one earlier, the idea that it's, too old, too late, which is a really ridiculous one, because age is literally just a number. It literally is just a number. It doesn't mean anything. Even if you're talking about something, biological, like having children, yes, it is relevant, but it's not the be all and end all for even something like that. So when you look at things outside of that, which are more, based in your choices, it's so irrelevant how old you are to what you want to do. So lifting that has been really important. And also, I suppose what comes with that is social conditioning, and the idea that if you are a woman, for example, there are certain things you're allowed to do. There are certain things that are undignified. There are certain things which you must be as a mother or a wife, and I think binning that stuff off, just literally chucking it in the bin, is very powerful, because it's a huge obstacle. And again, it's quite insidious. We're programmed from a very early age to follow the stereotypes of our gender or our class or our race, other factors, and being able to remove those. Or even if you can't remove them, just erase them a little so that they're not blocking you in. It just opens up a whole new world. And if you want to build a life where you're doing what you love, you're going to have to be quite passionate about it. You're going to have to feel what your purpose is in all of your being. Like, it's not just enough to have a plan. You need to know on a bodily level that this is what you need to do. It needs to be that real kind of yes, full body yes. So I think that's quite important as well, like finding your purpose. When I say that, it sounds like I mean look outside of yourself, but your purpose comes from inside. So it's kind of uncovering it. Maybe it might be buried under years of I can't, or self-doubt, or I shouldn't, or that's not for me, or so those are things which need to be unpicked. Binned off is my favorite phrase. I just love the idea of like it is, I think so. Like, I'm a wellness person, so I'm quite empathetic, and but I also have a kind of a core of steel, and I'm like, no, bin it off. Sometimes you just got to bin things off. Yeah. Shame, for example, bin it off.
But so where do these limiting beliefs come from, and what are they? Because I know we hear this term all the time, but if somebody hasn't, read into kind of personal development or something, like, how would you describe a limiting belief, where it comes from, and maybe what we can do to kind of shed them and bin them off, like you just said?
Thank you for adopting my term. I think it's all, these are your core beliefs, basically. These come from your core beliefs, and core beliefs are in your unconscious. So these are the messages you received as a child when you were growing up, during those first 7 or however many formative years, about what the world is and who you are allowed to be in it. And most of the time, what we consider to be sort of personality traits are actually the things that we did as children to stay safe and to keep being loved. So they're coping mechanisms, and they come from these core beliefs. And the combination of these things are what set us up with limits. Because, for example, something really, it's not silly, but it is silly. If you're in a dating scenario, you might believe that you can't be too keen, or friendship scenario, any situation with a new person in your life, you can't be too keen, because your core belief is that you're fundamentally not worthy of love. If you're too keen, if you show too much of yourself, the person's going to run away. And often you've got evidence of that in your brain somewhere. So, someone did run away, or your parents rejected you when you showed them who you really were, or a teacher did the same thing. So they're kind of, they're limits, as in they're there. But once you start to realize that they're there, they become less powerful. And there are lots of different ways you can do this. And this is, again, the reflecting back with a coach. It's often the moment when someone becomes aware of a limit. You might just have this horrible sense of like, why am I repeating the same patterns? Why do I end up in the same relationships? Why do I always get the same boss at work? And that's a sign that you are coming up against a limit again and again and again. You can also look at the messaging of your inner critic. Really useful exercise is to, at the end of every day for a week, write down all the messages that your inner critic has given you. And that can be quite overwhelming because, mine is vocal and harsh. And the first time I did that, I was like, wow, I'm horrible to me. And then if you look for the themes in that, it starts nudging you towards negative core beliefs and negative limits, which are holding you back. So that's quite a good way to start getting clarity on it as well.
Yeah, I've never heard of doing that exercise before, but I'm going to try it.
Yeah, let me know how you go.
Yeah, no, definitely. I really wanted to talk to you about wild swimming because I know we had a conversation before this and you're quite adventurous, really, I think. Do you have to coach yourself sometimes into doing challenging things? I mean, I'm using wild swimming as an example because I just think, oh my God, why would you do that?
Yes, it never changes. So the reason I keep doing the swimming is because there is never, in the winter, there is never a moment where my body isn't like, what the hell are you doing? Just go in the warm, have a cup of tea. Why? And I think that's really important because that's the edge of my comfort zone. And it's the reason I have cold showers every day. And I say a cold shower, I have a warm shower and then 2 minutes of cold. It's not a fully cold shower. But it's that moment of sort of like, no, you can't do this, which is a limit that we've just talked about. And then you prove it wrong. And then you've got evidence that that limit is incorrect. And from that come all these other things. The next time you come up against a limit, you can be like, well, hey, actually, I got in the sea when it was -5. Actually, no, don't. -5 is a ridiculous idea. When it was cold, when it was winter. So I can do that. I wonder what else I can do. And it kind of snowballs, which is wonderful. And I love the fact that people call me adventurous. It is one of my core values, adventurousness. It's like resilience. It's a practice. And I climbed a mountain last year with one of my friends and we forgot that there would be no streetlights on a mountain and had to descend the last hour in the dark. So that taught me about, I need a head torch. I need to work the timings out. I need to take enough food. So adventure is part going for it and it's part preparation and thinking of things in advance. And with the swimming especially, I did do a -5 swim in December, which is why I mentioned it. That took a lot of preparation because obviously there's the danger of hypothermia. So it's no anywhere you're being adventurous, there is sometimes a danger, and in that situation, that's a serious one. So again, when you get nervous before something, whether it's that or a presentation or whatever, you can kind of be like, okay, well, how can I help myself here? Part of it is going to be taking that adventurous leap at the last minute, but before that, I can make sure I've got tea so I can warm up quickly. I can make sure I've got layers. I've got the car nearby so I can get in and warm up. I've got the tripod so I can get an amazing shot for Instagram because that's joyful for me as well. So it's all about adventurous. If you don't feel like an adventurous person, it isn't that you're not an adventurous person. It might just be that you haven't learned the sort of way that for you to do it yet. If you'd seen me 10 years ago, you may not have thought I was adventurous in this way. Like I'd done a lot of traveling. I'd done a lot of things in my career, but I didn't take risks with my body like I do now. And there's so much physical freedom in being physically adventurous. And it's just a wonderful thing. Like it is very cold to get into the sea in winter, obviously. And your body will be like I said, like, what the hell are you doing? And your mind is like, sometimes before I've gone in the sea the night before, I haven't been able to sleep because my mind has been saying to me, you're probably going to die. It's far too early to be getting up. There's going to be ice on the road, the whole narrative, and you're just like, yeah, okay, well, I'll do this and I'll do that and I'll do this, and and then you do it, you go for the swim, the high afterwards is amazing, and you realize that there's a whole other level of person you can be because you can do this.
Yeah, 100%. I think for many years, if you ask any of my friends, they would always say, yeah, Zoe's awesome, but she has a real problem with self-confidence. They would all have said that, I'm sure. And the way I used to deal with that was just to throw myself into adventurous things. And people would be like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. And I'd be like, this is the only way I know, if I'm not going to live my life completely without any sort of self-confidence, I just have to, we've talked about this in many episodes, but feel the fear and do it anyway. I will just go, that looks really hard, and therefore I'm going to do it. But for me, that was about building confidence. That was about building trust in myself to go, okay, people may have labeled me this and labeled me that, but did they see this coming? I'm sure they didn't.
I love that rebellious spirit.
I always said I'm a quiet rebel, I was very studious at school, but there's always been a streak of wanting to do things differently and to use the power of being underestimated because maybe I'm not the loud, raucous one to kind of shock people at the end of the day. There's something really I find really satisfying in, talking about doing something and then going, okay, and then suddenly doing it and then being like, wow. I don't know. I would just get a real sense of satisfaction. I think it's, like you said, powerful. I think you just kind of feel empowered yourself when you do things that are outside your comfort zone, don't you?
You do, yeah, because I think confidence we mistake confidence for something that you either have or you don't, but it comes from your habits like resilience. And the really big thing about confidence is that it's the doing that creates the confidence. It's not the other way around. It's not the confidence that enables the doing. And that was really important for me to learn.
Yeah, me too. I think you kind of wait for that moment, or at least I did, wait for that moment of, well, at some point I'll have more confidence and then I can do this or that. And it's only sort of in more recent years that I've realized it's all in the doing. It's not waiting to feel something like you were saying before. It's going, okay, this is how I want to feel and I'm just going to take the action now. And it comes afterwards.
It is. I think also if you feel like you want to do something, there's a part of you that already knows you can do it. Like, why would you be thinking about it if you didn't? And I think that's something we don't often trust, that intuitive nudge of like, I've had this idea, I don't know if I can do it. But if I'm thinking about it, actually somehow some part of me must know that's possible for me.
How do you think though we can sort of nudge people across that line? Because I know there are people listening who have got things that they really want to do and somehow they're blocking themselves.
I mean, I'm doing that to myself at the moment as well with many things. So first of all, if someone's listening to this and thinking, oh God, that's me, you're so normal. Like we all do this all the time. Even, I don't know if I sound as if I never have any problem with this stuff. I do all the time. I've been trying to finish a book about Vikings to write it for months, and I'm blocking myself continuously, and I haven't really figured out why yet. But I would say, if it's just about action, it's about doing, and it's the combination of that and self-compassion, because it's the self-compassion that's like allows you to say to yourself, yes, I'm scared, or yes, this is very uncomfortable, or no, I haven't done what I'd hoped I would have done by now, but hey, these are the reasons why. I'm okay with this, And then there's the second part of self-compassion, which is like, but I also want to succeed. So what can I do differently now? How can I get myself moving? And often I think we sit there either waiting for that feeling that we've talked about, or waiting for that one big thing that we need to either have access to or to be able to do in order to change stuff. And actually change happens in micro moments. Very rarely is it one big thing. So it's that, like, what one thing can I do differently today? What tiny shift can I make happen today? And it could be something as simple as like getting an early night, or sending that email that you know that you wanted to send for a couple of days, or reading a chapter of a book you know inspires you, like tiny things. And they are the things I think which eventually push you over the line. I don't think you need very often to make a huge gut-wrenching effort for change. It comes in the micro moments.
Yeah, I think it's really quite often misunderstood as well. I made a post on Instagram the other day where I talked about finding tiny things that you can do just to shake up your day. The most small, insignificant things, but in some way, they really are still significant. And I called it micro mischief, and it was like, can you take a different route to work? Can you wear something that you wouldn't normally wear? Like just the tiny things that get you from comfort into stretch mode. If you incorporate enough of these tiny micro mischiefs in your day, that then become your week, that then become your month, they're all going to add up. And this is something that I'm really kind of only learning and trying to implement now, really.
It's very important, I think. And it's kind of, I think every time you do that, you make new neural pathways. And when you take a different route to work, or you do something different, or you break an old routine, and it's so important to keep doing that, not just to kind of move towards something, but to remind yourself that anything can happen at any time. Life is completely uncertain. The downside of that is it makes you anxious. The upside of that is everything you want could be yours, within 6 months.
I love that. I feel like that's such a high to end our interview on almost. Where can people find out more about you and your resilience coaching, or how to work with you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Alex Shore Coaching, SHORE. And my website is www.shore-coaching.com. So those are the main places that you can sort of find me. I'm also on LinkedIn. So I offer one-to-one coaching programs, which are 6 to 9 sessions, or there's an intensive 2-month coaching program called 2 Months to Resilience. I also have a couple of courses that I've developed, which are all about building resilience. One is about making change happen, which actually has some modules in it on play, interestingly. And the other one is about resilience at work. So it's very much aimed at being more resilient in the workplace, looking at kind of imposter syndrome, that kind of thing. And I also do workplace resilience training, with all the details for that on my website. And that's very much about giving people the tools to, show up as themselves in work, as well as, be more tenacious and flexible and the rest of it. So yeah, those are the main places you can find me online.
Thank you. And I read that there's a story behind calling it shore coaching, isn't there?
Yeah. So I just love the sea. I love surfing. I'm terrible at surfing, but I love surfing. I love swimming in the sea, obviously. And for me, the shore is basically the point, the jumping off point, when that's the moment where you have to make the decision to leave the safety of land. And for me, that's kind of what coaching is. And, sailing off into a wonderful sunset or like a new horizon, it just felt like quite a natural kind of metaphor, especially because most of my Instagram is water. So I am a resilience coach, not a swimming coach.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me today, Alex. It's been lovely talking to you.
It's been so nice. Thanks so much.
I hope you loved today's episode and it made you think differently, or perhaps nudged you into changing something in your life that's not working for you. I'd love to give you a shout out right here on the podcast too. So let me know what you think, what you'd like to hear more of, or how you've been inspired by what you've heard. Let's keep in touch over on Instagram at Mischief and Hide, or sign up to my newsletter at zoegreenhalf.com. If you're enjoying being part of the Mischief Movement, please consider telling a friend or leaving me a review wherever you download your episodes, which will seriously help my mission to inspire and empower more people like us to choose mischief over mediocre. Ciao!